Hello, and thank you for joining this brand new episode of Speaking of Happy with your host, Eli Rigatuso. Joining me tonight is Mika Covington, a transgender woman living with a rare disease called cystinosis. She is the founder of Next Generation Cystinosis and a longtime advocate for disability and transgender civil rights. Thanks for joining us for this brand new episode of Speaking of Happy, starting right now. I gotta unmute myself because I did that once where I decided I didn't have a guest, no one to join me, and I got on here and started talking about something, literally talked for about 7 minutes before someone threw a comment in there and said, "Hey man, you're muted." The largest Zoom faux pas. I did it right here on my channel, which is a bummer, but hey, it happens, right? It happens. Well, thank you so much for joining this evening. I see we have 3 guests online with us, either on Facebook or YouTube. We've got, it looks like 6 folks joining us over on LinkedIn. So excited. I know there's a little bit of a delay, darn it, on the LinkedIn side. So I will try to keep a watchful eye on whatever's going on over there. I don't know why the stream is 4 minutes behind or 5 minutes behind. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. But anyway, so let's just get to it. How does that sound? This evening, joining me on the show is Mika Jane Covington. Pronouns are she, her, hers. Mika is a transgender woman who lives with a rare disease called cystinosis. She's the co-founder and president of Next Generation of Cystinosis, a nonprofit focused on the needs of adults living with cystinosis. She also serves on the Patient and Family Advisory Board at the University of Iowa Hospital and Clinics, UIHC. She was a member of One Iowa's Transgender Advisory Board and currently studies psychology and German. Language, cultural, and politics. Mika is an advocate for disability and transgender civil rights. So everyone, join me in welcoming Mika. Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I am doing well. It has been a while since we have had a conversation.
Yes.
We have talked online a number of different times over the years, and I know I'm actually not even sure when you left to go to school in Iowa City, right? That's where you are now, correct?
It is, yes. Okay. I was here in 2016, 2017, and then, I had to take breaks for health, which is always something I'm, dealing with. But yes, I live here in Iowa City, and then also I have lived in the Des Moines area.
Okay. All right. Well, look, I don't want to go too far back, but I think it's just important to give everybody kind of a base of knowledge in regarding, what it is that you, first of all, what cystinosis is. Can you give us a little, those books for dummies?
the elevator pitch.
Yes, the elevator pitch for what cystinosis is and how it impacts you.
So cystinosis is a genetic disease. It is very rare. And what happens is in our cells, we have a lysosome that helps transfer like the trash out of the cell. And with us, with cystinosis, there's a mutation that makes the lysosome so it can't get these amino acids cysteine out of the cell, which then the lysosome crystallizes and dies, and that affects every cell in my body. And it first leads to really kidney failure. And so or almost all of us are transplant patients and go through a kidney transplant. I had mine in 2013 here in Iowa City at the hospital. And so as we age, it starts to really affect our muscles, breathing, all sorts of things. And recently we've been seeing some neurocognitive issues because of the disease. But that is a new area of study, and I have been participating in that research as well. Also, my voice sounds like this, partly because of the cystinosis and because of a constant acid reflux and vomiting from medications.
Yeah, because I would imagine you're on medications from the transplant, right? And
Yes.
then other medications that kind of help you, mitigate the disease.
Yes. Yeah, I'm on, I believe right now it's 26 different medications, transplant meds to suppress my immune system, and meds to deal with just some other effects of the cystinosis. My newest one is actually for my thyroid. The disease causes the thyroid to malfunction and sometimes not function at all. And so I have a replacement hormone for that.
Wow.
But yeah, really it's and then I have to take antacid medication to counteract all of the acid from these medications.
And how long have you been, like, is this something that you've known your whole life, or is this something that comes on later in life? What's the progression of the disease?
So I was born with it.
Okay.
There's technically 3 types of cystinosis. An intermediate level where it happens later in life and the effects are not as severe. And then there's ocular, that only affects the eyes. I wish I had that one. It'd be much easier than having the nephropathic, infantile nephropathic cystinosis, which is the one where you're born with it. You're all of them you're born with. Let me take that back. All of these are just, genetic and you're born with. But for the kind that most of us have, the infantile nephropathic cystinosis, affects us basically immediately after birth. And that's where we start to have failure to thrive, lots of vomiting constantly. That
Wow.
is a thing that we deal with throughout our lives.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, that is a rough journey. And I'm sorry that is something that you do have to live with. We've chatted a little bit about, kind of the intersections of being transgender and then also having a rare disease and some of the things that you have to face, that are compounded by that fact. Can you share a little bit more with us about that?
Yes. Somebody messaged me. I need to close that.
You got people talking to you in the background. It's
Yeah.
okay.
Yes. So being transgender with this disease, first of all, the disease actually helped me in my transition, which is interesting because it caused, in the persons assigned male at birth, have hypothyroid, hypothyroidism, but also hypogonadism. And so, like, the testes would not produce a normal amount of testosterone.
Mm.
And so sometimes our puberty will be late, and with that, then at least for me, it helped me with not getting too masculine appearing, and so that when I started the hormone therapy, changes started happening very quickly.
Wow. When did you start? How long have you known that you were something other than what they told you or assigned you at birth?
So I don't remember exactly how old I was at the time. It was very early, I know that. And it was when I actually lived in Malmo, Nebraska,
Mm,
out in Saunders County. I I had a friend over and playing and such, and that was really when I was feeling more like a girl
mm-hmm.
than like a boy. Um, but growing up, after then, my interests have always been like, I guess, gender neutral, because I'm a big sci-fi fan, and Star Wars and all of that. And I loved being outside.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't start transitioning officially. Um, well, socially, I began in 2009 when I came out while I was in high school, and then started medically transitioning in 2015,
Ah,
with hormone therapy here at the University of Iowa's LGBTQ plus clinic.
okay. So what was it like in 2009 for you to um, share your gender identity and to start to speak that publicly around folks? I mean, did you share with your family initially? Can you kind of walk us through that and your experience in coming out as trans?
Yeah, basically, it was difficult. It was scary. Felt very alone. Um, and first, I actually came out as a gay person.
Mm,
Um, but I knew that wasn't quite it. And I didn't really learn of what transgender was until I moved from Wahoo, Nebraska to Omaha to go to school at Millard South High School, where there were other openly gay, lesbian, bisexual people. No open trans person yet. But that's when I learned what transgender was. And then in 2009, it would have been my senior year. I slowly transitioned, like at school and at work. I worked at JCPenney at that time, and that's where I was dressing as a female and going by Mika and female pronouns,
mhm.
because it was safer for me actually working in that space than being in school or at home. Unfortunately, there was not much support from my family
Mm.
um, when I came out. And, then my mother kicked me out of the house while I was still in um, high school in my senior year. Um, and the only reason I continued going to school was because one of my teachers, English teacher, actually took me in and let me live with her and finish high school.
Wow, that is really rough. I'm sorry that
Yes.
that was your experience, and I think that, it's interesting because there are folks who, don't realize that, even now in 2022, there are young folks who are coming out as trans who aren't being embraced and welcomed and loved, and there are still LGB folks who are coming out and who are unfortunately live in states where they're still being, forced to go to these uh, religious organizations that try to pray the gay out. And I mean, and so I think it's just important for people to understand that not everyone's journey is one that is embraced. And so, I mean, so here we are in 2022, do you have supportive family members now? And how did all of that, how have things changed over time, do you think, for yourself?
For me, I I try not to think about my family or
Mm,
because it's like one thing is like they've never like apologized for the things that they've done, and they expect me to just forgive it. Um, like my mother hasn't apologized for any of the things that happened. Um, my older sister is now kind of back into the picture, and I talk with her, and my younger sister as well. The younger one has cystinosis as well, so we have some overlap with that experience, but it isn't like being in a group like with you, where we have these common understandings and knowledge about the community, and it's like always having to teach and try to get through to them, and so that's difficult. um but right now my support people, I don't have really anybody locally in Iowa City. um One of my friends, a close friend, lives in Oregon, and we actually do Zoom meets um, every week or so, or to talk and catch up. And then, like family wise, I have more of like a non-biological, adoptive, chosen family,
mhm.
including Bob and Diane Dean, um, who've like taken me in and helped me with getting my kidney transplant, recovering there, and then
Mm.
going back there in 2017 after I needed additional supports and healthcare.
Wow. Well, I'm happy to hear that you do have folks who are supporting you and are there along the way. I know that it's been difficult. I know we can't talk about it, but I know that there are some other things that you are facing as a result of some of the things that you've had to deal with. So, uh, without going into any detail on that because you can't really speak about it, just want folks to know that at this point, if you are able to or in a position where you would like to help support Micah, you could certainly do that. Whoops. Uh, and send her money to her PayPal page. Again, she does have the nonprofit, and the nonprofit had a grant that they were able to secure to kind of help them. But Micah actually works for the nonprofit for free. So, she's doing a lot of her own emotional labor, and many of us know what it's like uh, to create a nonprofit and then put in the time and the energy and effort to make the nonprofit successful, but all doing it because it's more of a labor of love. Um, I mean, for you, it's about life. It's
It's
about
it's vital to survival
yes,
for
it's
us.
about staying alive. And I know that you have struggled over the past uh, year for sure. I know it's been longer than that, and I've done my best to try to help garner some support for you as well and gather some funds to kind of help keep you going and keep you in school and take care of some of those things. So if you are watching and you are able to support Micah, you can certainly go to paypal.com slash PayPal me slash Micah J Covington and just toss a little cash over. It would help with some daily living expenses and whatnot.
Yes.
What do you think is the most difficult thing in the community in general? So you don't really have any support there. is at the school. I mean, what is the temperature like there for folks who are LGBTQ?
There's a little bit of drama,
Okay.
of course.
Yes. Well,
According to the human rights, what is it called? Human Rights Campaign,
yeah.
University of Iowa hospitals have a 100% score and are excellent on paper. And the same with the actual university, the academic university is pretty good about all of this on paper. But like enforcing things is a bit more difficult because of politics. And our board of regents are all appointed by our governor, Kim Reynolds,
Mm.
and the past Republican governor, Branstad. And so their politics gets in the way of actually enforcing things.
Right.
Here at the university, I actually live across the street from the Pride Center. And so I spend a lot of free time over there studying and, making friends that way. But it's not like going out drinking with friends and getting close relationships. It's for me, that's difficult for a number of reasons, including my cystinosis, which comes with a lot of what is the word? Well, not being able to do things that other people my age would be doing.
Mm.
For example, drinking. I can't really drink with all the medications I take. And I'm not really supposed to be out in large crowds, especially here in Iowa, where we didn't have anybody following a mask mandate.
Right.
It seemed. So I lost my train of thought. I apologize.
No. I mean, I understand that there are a lot of barriers in the way right now, in regard to like connecting and meeting people and having some of the community engagement that I think is really vital. And it makes sense. I mean, we're still dealing with COVID,
Yes.
and so you are, um, you have a compromised immune system and compromised health, and so that's not something that is easy for you to do. So I totally get it. I mean, I was pretty sick with COVID in 2020, and I still kind of keep myself, I don't really go out a lot. I spend a lot of time right here in my house with me, doing my own thing. And so I totally get it. And it's important to keep yourself safe.
Yes. And with that as well, um, the Pride Center, it does get funds directly from the university. But because all the employees are students as well, it's hard for them to have like open, 9 a.m. to like 9 p.m. And so they're open at certain times. But what some of us have noticed is getting accommodations for housing, academic accommodations. Sometimes they drag their feet, especially like with me with my housing accommodations.
Mm-hmm.
I needed accommodations because of one, I am transgender, and I am not comfortable with really sharing a room with anybody else. And then medically as well, don't want to be spreading germs, having them come over with their friends and all of that. And then also having a restroom that only like I can be in at one time and have the door locked, which this new dorm that I'm placed in has that. But originally, when I came here last year in the fall, they put me in a like more of an apartment like thing where there's two people who had their own bedroom and we shared a kitchen and a bathroom. But the bathroom, we can only lock it on the outside. So, like, my neighbor could walk in at any time. I didn't have control over that. And so that was a big thing. And it took getting assistance from the Pride Center, the coordinator, to email and speak up on my behalf to get those accommodations.
Wow. Well, I'm glad that they were able to work that out for you, but that had to be really difficult to, and I think that a lot of folks they just don't even think about the impacts of everyday things that we take for granted for folks who are not transgender.
Yes.
And again, with all of the things that you have to live with, um, having people who are knowledgeable enough about all those things to actually even proactively think about, hey, what might be the impacts of this person, being in this environment. And
Yes.
so I'm glad to hear that there was someone advocating for you, but I'm sorry to hear that it had to take a while to get them to a point where they got you in a place where you uh, feel that you're more comfortable.
Yes, and with that, there's the intersection with having the cystinosis, where I have physical limitations, um, and that both the being trans and that weren't exactly enforced at the time, because I need to be closer to the elevator on a low floor for emergencies. And the original dorm, I was clear on the end of a long, long hallway, as far as you can get from the elevators.
Wow.
That was pretty difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. I just can't imagine. I think about when I was at school at UNO back in the 90s, and I was a relatively healthy person. I was a little bit of a late bloomer, but but I was a relatively healthy person, and all of the walking that I did from one end of the campus to the other, and I didn't live on campus, but parking was always a nightmare. It's a worse nightmare now, from what I've been told. But I couldn't imagine. And then also, living with a rare disease, and the ways in which that it impacts your body and your muscles, and what that would be like for you to have to walk from one end of the campus to the other, let alone just down a long hallway.
Yeah.
So so I'm grateful to hear that there are folks who are supportive and helping you navigate these spaces. Can you tell me a little bit more about what Next Generation Cystinosis is trying to do in regard to the advocacy work about the disease?
Yes. So we're still fairly new, and since we don't have any paid staff, it makes things a little bit longer, because our board is actually all of us live with cystinosis. Only our treasurer does not. And so we all understand we have a lot of bad days, and so it takes us much longer to get things done than we would like. But also, what we are doing in the meantime is trying to provide these safe spaces for adults with the cystinosis to be able to share their hardships, their struggles, their ups and downs, all of that, and give feedback between our experiences. But we also we've had a conference. We did a virtual conference last year. We plan on doing another one this year, where we have people in the scientific community also give updates on research that's being done. And then we have Dr. Ana Francisco from Albert Einstein College of Med. And she's working on more of the neurocognitive, psychological issues with cystinosis. And so she comes and helps explain what her research is finding. And we also have talked about working on a project together as the organization. I don't have all the specifics yet because we're still in very beginning stages of that. Again, I'm sorry, I keep losing track.
No, it's okay.
And that could be part of my cystinosis.
Yeah.
I didn't get distracted very easily, and it takes longer to recover. I have notes over here that I'm glancing at.
Yeah. No, it's totally fine. We have 30 minutes left to converse. So you have plenty of time to circle back around if you need to, Micah.
Excellent. Well, so what part of what we're doing as the organization is trying to push the needs of the adults, because unfortunately the two established organizations are family run, and their focus is on children with cystinosis, teens with cystinosis.
Yeah.
And there is no existing organization that is run for and by us, the adults.
Except for yours.
Yes, that's where it comes. Yes, and so eventually what we plan to do is be that organization, providing assistance with, like, filling out Social Security, getting disability, or health insurance, and then also educating hospitals, doctors on the needs of adults with cystinosis, because we are like a new generation coming in, living well into our adulthood. That's new for cystinosis, where we usually only made it into the second decade of life.
Wow.
And now I believe the oldest person is nearing their 60s.
Wow.
That's amazing. But that also means there's this new gap in how to increase their quality of life and help take care of these new problems that we're noticing in us, specifically the neurological problems, mobility problems, all of that.
And then on top of that, then the fears of what something like COVID might.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
several of us have caught COVID. My co-founder and vice president, Rebecca Palmer, I think she might be watching because she said hi a little bit ago.
I see that. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, she actually had COVID and is recovering from that, but it can be very scary for us, depending on how far our cystinosis has progressed, and where we are, financially, which brings me up to another thing. So with cystinosis, the adults, emerging adults, meaning young adult, we face this interesting spot, and it intersects with being trans as well. Of us, and this is according to a study that was a survey that was done by one of the other organizations.
Mhm.
More than 70% of the adults are concerned with finding a job, keeping a job, and how to navigate talking about accommodations that we need in the work,
Yeah.
um, and when and how do we disclose that we have this disease to employers to be able to receive protections from the Americans with Disabilities Act. And that all then, so that it goes with being trans, you know, looking for a job, finding health insurance that covers what you need,
Yeah.
job discrimination and harassment, disclosing your status as a trans person. Um, and so that's also where eventually, when I get my psych degree, I want to do research into that area, and the mental health aspect of, because, being trans itself, you like triple the risk
Mm.
of suicide,
Yeah.
and severe mental illness. Um, the risk isn't as high with cystinosis, but it is still quite increased with really any rare disease. If you compare cystinosis to more common disease, cystic fibrosis, the rates of mental health concerns, depression, anxiety, are about the same, which is above 60%.
Mm. And I would imagine that there is like it's more of a hidden illness unless you disclose it.
Yes,
And
unless,
so
yeah,
yeah, and so then that like I totally get what you're saying, and I think that the other thing about ADA requirements and um is that smaller businesses that have less than 15 employees don't even have to go by those requirements. And I
yes,
think a lot of people don't even understand that. Now, good people who run those businesses, those smaller businesses, might be smart enough to say, okay, yes, we do want to make accommodations, reasonable accommodations for you. But I do understand the fear that that would be behind that. And I mean, it's just, again, and I know just as a trans person, how difficult it is to go out and apply for work. After I came out as trans in 2015 and began my transition, I faced a ton of discrimination at my place of employment. And I went out and was trying to find other work and trying to do what I had done before. Like when people found out that I was part of the LGBT community before my coming out as trans, um, it was difficult to deal with the responses, but it was nothing like what I faced after coming out as trans and then going out into the work world, because most people don't even understand. I mean, I had to call previous employers and request that they update my records so that if someone was calling to check on my previous employment, that they were asking for the right name, because
yes,
my name change had already gone through. um, I had previous employers who, by the way, are part of the LGBTQ plus community, who did not even respond to my emails or phone calls and didn't even confirm whether or not they were going to upgrade or update my information and speak with about me with dignity and respect.
yes,
And those are very valid concerns as a trans person. So I just can't imagine, the fear of going out and getting a job based on that and then saying, oh, and by the way, I also have cystinosis. Then having to educate those people, the people that you're now working for, about what that is and what that means, and having to disclose things um, that can be really uncomfortable and personal.
yeah. Hence why I do not have income right now. I don't have a job. Um, I have tons of skills I can use to work, but
Mhm.
finding an employer that is willing to give me the accommodations that actually go beyond what the ADA requires is next to impossible unless I do my own organization, find my own income, all of that. But like, my previous career has been working in politics,
Mm,
organizing on campaigns, and I know how to do that and I can do it very well. But then I also need all these accommodations.
yeah.
Because my last campaign job in 2020, I actually got fired from because I could no longer do all of the requirements that the job had, like physically going and door knocking, um, and making the hundreds of thousands of calls we make, because of my voice, because I can't do that physical effort.
Yeah.
Um, and I get exhausted very easily. So like living with cystinosis, at my age, you wake up in the morning and you have like 40% full energy. And then, you do your meds, you deal with side effects, and then you just run out of energy very easily and need more breaks to be able to accomplish everything in the day that we need to be doing.
Yeah. 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 So, what do you wish that, or what would you say to anyone who might be tuned in, who either runs a company or a business, or maybe owns a small business, in regard to hiring someone like you? What do you wish that they would be aware of and willing to do?
Um, for at least for the cystinosis, being willing to learn, um, and work in collaboration with your employee, um, because it really is, having an open and honest conversation about the realities of what they expect the employee to do and what the employee can physically do. Um, there goes my thought
Yeah.
again.
No, it's okay. I mean, I'm just sitting here thinking about, I mean, I feel like every job description is just like this mountainous description of all of the requirements and yada yada. And I don't know, I guess I wish that there was some way to be able to create a work environment where it would be okay. Like if you could really produce for an hour solid and then take a 20-minute break and
Yeah,
then come back and really produce for another hour solid and
yeah.
then take another 20-minute break, like would that really be so bad in the scheme of things?
Well, that is actually what I was doing on the 2020 campaign. Um, and they, my direct supervisor is the one who made all these decisions,
Mm,
not like the head staff in Des Moines. And so she interpreted it as me being lazy. These conversations didn't happen with me until after I was let go.
mm,
So that's where I say having being able to listen and try to educate and understand, basically having some compassion and empathy. Um,
yeah.
because yeah, I can do some good work, and I have, and get things done, but I do need these multiple breaks, and I do have, um, lots of doctor visits that I have to go to. Is like right now I am, working with my doctors to get a, gastric jejunum, tube placed, or GJ tube, because I struggle with swallowing,
Mm,
some of my medications, and then the primary medication I have that slows the progression, I can no longer take it into my stomach because it's not dissolving correctly. It needs to dissolve in my intestines, and it's not. So I need that direct access. So once I have that, if I'm working, I'll need to take a couple days break to recover from the surgery. And then I'll need extra time for taking medications while on the job and having a safe space to do that where I don't have to worry about people coming and going.
Right.
So like but and then that complicates matters even more again.
Right. I know it's because, but it's also because we live in this world where, like, we feel like there, you always have to be looking as though you're producing.
Yes.
And so we don't think about that, the impact that has on all of us, let alone folks like you who are dealing with a rare disease and having all of these other things. And I just wish that there was a way to transform the ways in which we look at work, even, and productivity, and what does that mean exactly, and like outlining and saying, how long does it take for you to actually administer your medication now that you have this, and then just building that in automatically and saying you are going to be doing this at this time, and this time, and having an employer who says, we've got you and it's
That would be
okay,
amazing. I would
right?
probably be crying
No,
with that.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Rebecca.
Yes, Rebecca, thank you so much. And I hope you're feeling better. I hear you had COVID, and I hope you're feeling better. I don't wish that. I've said this, and I got pretty sick, but I don't wish that illness on my worst enemy. It's just not. COVID was pretty brutal, and this is why I try to keep myself safe and make sure that I am doing all the things that I need to be doing in regard to still masking and all of that. I've just noticed so many places now, people are just not masking at all. Like, I'm like one of the lone maskers.
Yes, that's exactly how it's like on the University of Iowa's campus. They even started taking down some of the hand sanitizer stations. And they took down all of the notices about trying to protect yourself from COVID. But our governor decided to pass a law prohibiting these mandates, and she shut down our COVID tracking website, and it's basically declared it over. While in China right now, they are having more closures because of COVID.
Wow.
But
yeah, I don't understand our politicians who just don't, like, they just don't get it. And I don't know what it would take to change their minds or shift their thoughts, but it's just really sad. So
it is.
All right. Okay. So we got about 12 minutes left. Okay. And is there anything that folks can do, like I said, outside of donating? Because right now you're working on some issues in regard to the nonprofit. I hope you will come back though once you get the 501c3 status, because I would love to be able to do a fundraiser. Maybe we could do a live stream event where we talk, really just hammer away at some of the things that are important or that are needed. And I think it's really, the other thing that I want to say is I think that it's beautiful that you've created this organization that is for adults with cystinosis and run by adults with cystinosis, and understanding that it's interesting because there are so many things that happen for young people, and it's valid that they do, but as we start to get older, we get forgotten about. And I think that
Exactly.
I think it's just really important. I have a,
Yep.
a friend who started or who is started an organization called Owlish, and it is for focusing on LGBTQ plus elders,
Yes.
and really thinking about. I mean, certainly one of my biggest fears is to end up with dementia and following in my mother's footsteps and end up having to go into a nursing home where I'm not being treated with dignity and respect based on my body parts.
Yep. Yep.
And that is a valid fear, and I'm certain that that is some of the things that you also experience in healthcare in regard to, although you are female presenting, um, things and ways in which the healthcare community, because this is another thing that I talk a lot about, is that our doctors and our nurses and all these people who are getting paid big bucks to take care of our health do not have to learn about people like us.
Yes.
It
Exactly.
is an elective for them to do so. It is not a requirement.
And that is exactly the work I've been doing on the Patient and Family Advisory Council. And I've been met with quite a lot of resistance because they say, oh, it's not their job. They say it's such a job of a different department. And I keep saying, how is this different from the patient experience side?
Yeah.
I've brought them several reports that people have talked to me about and for things that I've witnessed in
Yeah.
the ER. Um, and they say, well, these people need to come and contact us. And this last meeting, I tried to explain, well, why would you expect somebody who's been harassed and discriminated against to come forth to you to then report this when they do not feel like this is a safe space for them?
Yeah.
It's but it's I am doing what I can, and I keep nudging nudging them.
Well, I just want to say thank you for doing that work because I know how hard it is. And I have done a lot of that work myself here in Omaha and with a lot of different health community or health colleges in the area. Now, granted, I have been invited into some of these spaces, which I'm really grateful for. Spaces that folks would even think might not initially invite someone like us into the space. But I mean, I've talked at College of St. Mary. I have put together 3 panel discussions for College of St. Mary, which has been really, I thought was pretty cool that they wanted to have those conversations. And we did a panel for a class even, which turned out to be like they asked really great questions. And a lot of them even said, thank goodness that that you are invited here because there are a lot of things that I'm learning today that I did not know.
Yes.
And so, that's the other piece of it. It's like we need more of these colleges to be curious and to do the work. I've been pushing on UNMC about doing more work towards like making some of these things a requirement.
Yes. If I may have a couple minutes just
Yes.
to share a little bit. So only reason I came to Iowa was because of the LGBTQIA protections here that are currently being eroded. But and at the time when I was talking about my experience at Nebraska Medical Center, people would not believe me, couldn't even consider that this was a reality. But I was refused my transplant there, and it was because of being transgender, because my living donor who was there ready to donate their organ also was part of the LGBTQI plus community.
And wait a minute. So this is at which was UNMC?
Nebraska. Yep. they refused to treat me back in 2011, 12. And that's why I came over to Iowa, is to be
Mm,
able to get this treatment. But they refused. They would schedule it the day before. They would have me go through all of the pre-op appointments. And then after that, they would cancel the surgery that was supposed to take place the next day.
mm.
They did that twice, required me to go through a bunch of psychotherapy, because they, and it was, that's, yeah, it was a big thing. I tried and tried to get help, and
Mm.
attorneys wouldn't do it because they were saying that Nebraska medicine has all of these lawyers.
Wow.
But yeah, that's it. That's basically why I ended up here in Iowa.
Mm.
It's because of that. And oh, and then also University of Iowa hospitals has the training on being, a human to trans people, but it is voluntary. And there's been a lot of resistance to make that mandatory. That's another thing I keep talking about, is making this mandatory.
Yeah.
It could be costing people's lives, like the
Oh,
individual I met in the ER.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's the most difficult part about it is when they say, well, we can't really push people to learn about this. Well, I'm sorry, but if I am in the ER and I need medical attention and there's a doctor that's there, that I don't want to have to be teaching that doctor about myself. And
Yeah.
half the time, my being trans actually has nothing to do with what I'm being
Oh,
treated
yes.
for. I mean, I'm sorry,
Exactly.
but for people to say things like, "Oh, you have a sore throat, maybe it's your testosterone." No, I think it's because I have a cold, or I have the flu, or I might have COVID. I don't know.
Yes. Yes.
I will say this much though. My experience at the ER for when I got sick with COVID was actually one of the best.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
And so I mean, I know it's so disheartening to hear that you had to go through that back in 2011, 2012. Um,
Well,
I
and now I'm dealing with that again, because I do have mental health issues. Who wouldn't, with all of these things that they're doing?
yeah.
And so they're labeling me as only needing this surgery for the GJ tube, for psychological purposes, because I just don't like the taste of the medicine, or that it causes minor vomiting. Um, and that's just not true at all. And then they refuse to listen to the experts,
Mm,
who, specialize in cystinosis, these doctors and researchers that I communicate almost regularly with, some of them.
yeah.
Um, and lastly, um, like you said, with trying to educate your doctor, that is the one of the constant things in a person with cystinosis,
Yeah.
because there's only about 500, 600 of us in the United States,
Mm,
and about 2,000 worldwide. We have to, at the same time as trying to get treatment, we have to educate the doctor, provide numbers and contact information to these specialists to get care that we need.
mm,
Not to mention including being transgender, and like you said, oh, it's your testosterone. For me, they're always trying to um, stop me from taking estrogen, because they're saying that that's why I have like certain issues with blood pressure and all of that. So
mm,
it's a mess. And these are also some of the things we talk about in Next Generation of Cystinosis.
yeah.
Um, It's a lot, and we're building our own community to take care of us as we are the experts on ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you taking time and sharing so generously what it is that you have to face in your life, Micah. I would love to, like I said, I would love to have you come back. If there's ever anything that you need in regard to folks who could provide certain things for the organization, please let me know. Don't hesitate to reach out and just let me know that you need a few volunteers or you need someone to write something or whatever you need. Just know that you can reach out to me and ask for that kind of support. Is there anything that you would like to leave us with here, just in the last few minutes? I mean, we are almost at 10 o'clock, but
Yes, I
yeah,
just would like to say that to anybody who's watching who is trans or has a rare disease, that to live unapologetically, and we need to stop apologizing for taking space.
yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Like I
Thank you.
said, once you secure that 501c3, let's do a fundraiser so that we can continue to raise some money for the folks that need it.
Yeah.
And for, again, yourself, if you want to send a tip over to Micah, just thanking her tonight for her emotional labor and what she did share about what she's gone through. I'm sure she could use the support. All right, y'all. So thank you so much for tuning in. Micah, sending you all the love. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.